If I were to say the name Michael Collins to you, my guess is that few of you would know who that is. If I asked you to go home and ask your grandparents or your parents if they remember the 3 astronauts who landed on the moon, Apollo 11, who were they? My guess is they'd be able to name 1 or 2 of those astronauts. Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong. The third one I bet they wouldn't remember. That's Michael Collins. He's often referred to as the forgotten astronaut. And the reason for that is that his job was not to go and land on the moon. In fact, at that time, he did later in life, but he didn't step foot on the moon when Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong did. His job was to get close enough to the moon that they could leave in their module and go down to the moon, and then he was to go up and orbit, which he did for 21 hours around the moon, orbiting about twice every hour around the moon until it was time to come back and pick them up. At the time he did that, he experienced the definition of loneliness. He was literally by himself, miles above the moon, circling, not knowing for sure if he was going to successfully be able to pick up his 2 teammates, his 2 friends, because they hadn't done this before. They still had to connect and leave and fly back to Earth, and they weren't positive that that connection was going to happen. And as he would circle around the moon, and when he got to the far side of the moon, he would lose contact from everybody. His buddies on the moon, as well as the people back at the offices of NASA. So in the process of circling the moon, imagine the loneliness that he must have felt, all by himself, literally in outer space, with no communication with anybody for 21 hours, knowing that at some point he was going to need to go back and pick up his friends and might not be able to do so, and then have to make the decision to leave and come back to Earth without them. What would he do? Would he leave them? Would he stay up there and float himself until he died? I don't know. Like, what do you do? And that was all questions that nobody knew. Now, he's thought of as the forgotten astronaut, and his story to me is amazing. He originally was turned down by NASA, and he was told that he didn't have the unique characteristics necessary to be an astronaut. And this was a very important the next question that he asked himself. He didn't just quit. The question he asked himself, and it was written in a book on him, he said, well, could I attain those characteristics, those unique characteristics? Are they attainable? If so, I'm going to go do that. He had heard that other astronauts who were now part of NASA's program had also originally been denied, and he went and figured out what did they do to reapply. He went and did those things, reapplied, and ultimately became one of the 3 astronauts and was involved in NASA for a lot of years, and is a very influential person when it comes to travel in space and the exploration of outer space. So Michael Collins, the forgotten astronaut, he didn't give up. In a time when he was extremely lonely, he hung in there knowing that this was going to be a tough decision he would have to make. And I think as teammates, you're in similar situations. Well, not similar. You're not floating around the moon. However, you do have teammates that oftentimes are struggling, and teammates at times that need your help, but sometimes you're helpless, and all you can do is wait and be there for them. You can't fix their problem, but simply being there for when they're ready for help, being able to help them when they're ready to accept that help is all you can do, and that's enough. We can't always fix the problem. We can't always go down and land on the moon and in his case, address if something went wrong on the moon, there wasn't anything he could do about it. And as teammates, that's sometimes your job as well, is to just be there, to hover close enough that when the call comes that, hey, we're ready to go, or I need your help, you can be there to help them. That's what a real teammate is, not just a team member, a teammate. There's a difference. The word teammate and the word team member are different words. When you wear the same jersey and you play on the same team, you're a team member. But to be a teammate requires that you have some relationship. If you're my mate, you're my friend. There's a connection, there's a relationship. So be a teammate and be there for each other. Like Michael Collins was to Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong. Eyes up, do the work.